Yeah, Pulak, when it is good to go, you please tell me.
Yeah. Jyotirma, you can start now.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
More people are still connectivity.
Yeah, fine. So we will just allow them another 2-3 minutes to join in and settle down. And then Suresh, we can start off. So welcome to all who have all joined in so far. We will commence the webinar in just a moment. Suresh, I think we can start off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. One second. Yeah. Yeah, good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to you all for this live webinar on manage next level disruptions in supply chain and logistics. As you all aware, the new normal in this world of business is disruption. The economy and the business procedures have fundamentally altered, leading to instability. Supply chain and logistics management is one of the many functions that is struggling to pace up with the disruptions of today's business environment. It has become more complex than it was once. Therefore, making it harder for supply chain managers to grasp its nuances and adapt their processes accordingly. It is critical for you to stay updated with supply chain and logistics industry trends and developments and build new skills if you want to maintain your competitive positions and be future ready. Learn about the right strategies to effectively navigate through the disruptions during the course of the webinar. Our esteemed faculty program chairs will throw more light on the 6 to 8 months executive program in supply chain and logistics management and how enrolling for it helps you go miles forward in your supply chain and logistics career. Let me take the pleasure of introducing the faculty of the speakers for this program. We have Professor Chetan Soman. Professor Chetan is a faculty member in production and quantitative methods area at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has done masters in industrial engineering and operations research from Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai, and PhD in management and organization from University of Groningen, the Netherlands. He has presented and published a number of papers and articles at national and international conferences and journals like International Journal of Production Economics, International Journal of Production Research, and European Journal of Operational Research. His current area of research are food supply chain management, advanced planning and scheduling in process industry, simulation modeling of healthcare systems, shipping and port operations management, and disaster management at places of mass gatherings. Professor Debjit Roy is an Institute Chair Professor in the Production and Quantitative Methods area at Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He holds a PhD in Industrial Engineering and a Master's in Manufacturing Systems Engineering from University of Wisconsin-Madison, USA. Besides an MSc of Engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is also a visiting professor at Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University, and Stephen M. Ross School of Business, University of Michigan, where he is actively involved in both teaching and research in the broad area, of operations and logistics. At IIM Ahmedabad, Professor Debjit serves as a chair of research and publication office and founding co-chair of the Center for Transportation and Logistics. Request Professor Debjit and Professor Soman to take up the further proceedings. Professor Debjit?
Sure. Just let me share my screen as well. Let me try to see. 1 second. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So all the participants, first of all, thank you for joining this webinar. Professor Soman and I are excited to welcome you to the program as well. What we intend to do for the next 30 minutes or so is both of us will kind of give you a flavor about the current trends in supply chain and logistics. In particular, we focus a bit on disruptions and why this is the right time for you to get involved in such a program, right? That's really the intent. I think Mr. Suresh did already a generous introduction for us. But still, we will talk a bit about what we do and what kind of research we carry out at IMA. So broadly, my research interest is in transportation and warehouse design, automation, doing a lot of work also in design of terminals, e-commerce order fulfillment. It directly kind of leads to some of the concepts and cases that we cover in this course as well. With this, I will give the floor to Professor Soman to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar and also the program. Broadly, I'm interested in supply chain management of late, of course, food supply chain, pharma, and very interesting fields like gold logistics. So many interesting things happening there. Of course, we will start with some comments from Professor Debjit Roy. At this point in time, many prime ministers and presidents of the countries are also talking about supply chains and the disruptions there. So I think we are starting with a very apt theme there. Over to Professor Debjit. I will get back.
Thank you, Professor Soman. So let me start a bit about talking about the disruptions as we are hearing this for the last probably few years already, right? So if we talk about in general supply chains, we already have been using smartphones for more than a decade now. And if you kind of disassemble the parts and you try to figure out where these are coming from, right? So we never do this, but recently there is a nice kind of quote which I hear everywhere is the crisis reveals transparency, right? Unless we have a crisis, we never think about where these parts are getting sourced from. But if you ask yourself, like hundreds of thousands of components going inside an iPhone, for example, where are they really coming from? If you drew the map for these components, you will see the whole globe is involved, right? Quite fragmented. And if you ask yourself personally why this fragmentation was in the first case, right? And if you talk about the fragmentation, the very reason would be probably dated back to Henry Ford, even earlier, where we talk about efficiencies. The cost economics always had a huge impact in our sourcing, the procurement strategies, right? And because of that, we fundamentally felt that, hey, it is the cheapest source of inert gas would be somewhere from this, cheapest source of this chip would be somewhere in the Asia, and we kind of mapped every part of the world with certain components. Right? That has always been the trend. But recently, we also saw that there's several phenomena that is driving around us is also kind of changing or reshaping this whole supply chain. For example, if we talk about disruptions, well, we have seen disruptions for decades. It's not the first time we are hearing disruption, right? Probably you still recollect about the tsunami in Japan. If you remember 2011 episode and some of the tsunami experience, probably you still remember the impact of the tsunami was quite widefold. All the manufacturing units in US were shut down for months because, Japanese always had this kind of relationship-driven suppliers, where your suppliers are in a particular location, you don't typically diversify because you believe, you trust them, and so on and so forth. And that was what it was going on for decades. But post 2011, we already saw some kind of localization, right? Vendor parks were getting close by. So we were seeing some of those instances of changes in supply chain after that. But very recently, of course, the geopolitical crisis, the Ukraine-Russia war, has thrown apart the whole supply chain, from anything from the food grains to the inert gases that goes into the semiconductor chips, right? So we were really worried, for example, about, you can see here, 90% of the source of inert gases for semiconductor neon was from Ukraine. 90%. Look at the dependencies, right? And we, not only that, before even the Ukraine war, we were pretty much in a crisis for semiconductor chips. And that already happened during the COVID times, when all the automobiles were shut down, production was shut down for months, and then the big giants of semiconductor chips had reallocated their capacity to maybe the computer segment, electronic segments, and all the capacity from the automobile were kind of shifted, right? And that put us in a huge crisis. I hope you still recollect, if any of you went to buy a car in the last year or so, very likely you were asked to wait for at least a month or even a couple of months in some cases. For example, MG, which is right up in Gujarat, where the production centers are, we already hear that they were trying to make very high-tech cars, right? That's their forte. But because of the shortage of chips has really disrupted and not only also reduced their production capacity by 1/3. It is quite significant impact these had on the overall supply chain. So disruptions are common, and these days I think we have to understand that it's not just about cost. It is not just about your efficiency or the green or the carbon emissions, but also for us sustainability matters. We have to also think about resiliency of supply chains, right? How can we make the supply chain flexible and resilient to the disruptions that could potentially happen in the future as well? That's a key kind of premise where the supply chains are kind of reshaping. So 2019 onwards, I think every student in business studies would know that we are kind of deep into the demand supply shocks, the logistic challenges. There are a lot of containers who are actually parked in the US. A lot of trade was happening from China to the US for the PPE kits and all kind of medicine requirements, and there was imbalance of containers. So not much trade happening from US to remaining part of the world, and that also led to disruption in the distributions. So you can see here the blank sailings. This is also very interesting. This data was taken from Statista, but it talks about some of the, you can see the dark blue segment over here are some of the virus outbreak in China. You can see the number of ships that was stopped or not sailing because of the COVID. And that is quite significant, right? Number of blank sailings. As a result, you also know that there's a huge impact on the rate of the FU or the full-term equivalent unit. So all the containers, what you see here, right now, if you go to the spot markets, you probably will go about $11,000 per container. Very expensive, right? It's not even $3,500. This information is also quite dated now. So all we are saying is that there is huge imbalance in trade. There is shortage of movement of containers. There are lack of containers, or rather empty containers. So a lot needs to be repositioned. Vessels are carrying empty containers. So somehow the costs are getting enhanced. Anybody getting into the shipping today has to pay 3 or 4 times the price regularly. Well, I'm sure you all heard about the Evergreen, right? The Evergreen was stuck in the Suez Canal for more than 3 months. And what I got to know is, I think IKEA's furnitures were there. It was stuck there for 3 months. And there were many time-sensitive products which were also perished while they were waiting there. So why is this kind of happening, right? So you can see here the vessels are growing bigger and bigger. And the same Suez Canal is holding 5,000 TEU at one point, from today to 20,000, 22,000 upwards TEUs today, right? So are these canals even ready to take up the large vessels? If you recollect, during this interruption, a lot of vessels were rerouted and had to take another 15 days to go to the destination. So again, that had a huge impact on the trades and also on the costs of, say, one particular disruption that is ripple effect of the overall supply chains. In fact, the China zero COVID policy also had a huge impact. It contained the demand that, a lot of production units were stumped for months and months. It distorted the demand signals. And suddenly you got a lot of vessels in the LA port in the US. More than 40 kind of vessels were waiting outside. Look at the conditions. This was never heard about before. By the way, this is one of the average scenario. On the peak day, there were 105 ships were waiting near the LA and the Long Beach from China, and just because it's all the lumpiness, it's the lumpiness in demand and the demand supply mismatch, all of these results in these kind of flows. So why are we even discussing all of these today, right? All we are saying is that, have we ever prepared our supply chain? Have we thought about supply chain at a global scale? For us, when we are doing on supply chain procurement, we only have visibility probably till the first tier of the supply chain. Only such weaknesses reveals all of our disruptions, reveals the kind of weaknesses we have in the supply chain. So that's on the upstream side of the procurement, but it has a huge impact on your production. How can you really match demand with supplies, right? So disruptions are quite recent, and what you're seeing is there's nothing that it is infrequent these days. There are a variety of disruptions happening, and you never know which item is sourced from which part of the world, and because of disruption, what is stopped production. So these are not solutions, they're more like thoughts, right? These are some of the trends, what is going on, and how this course will kind of take you to, or at least make you think about how we need to rethink the whole supply chain strategies, right? That's on this at a strategic level. So today it's not just in time. People are talking about just in case. We're developing proactive scenarios. We are rethinking the whole supply chain. We're not only going with a plan B, we also plan C, plan D. I think data centricity is increasing. We are leveraging data. I was talking to some of the folks. They're also using now the data behind the suppliers to really predict what is going to happen, right? So for example, if you know that a certain region is more prone for disruptions because of a variety of reasons, what is your plan B, right? Because cost is no longer our only weapon. We have to think about resiliency. We have to think about business continuity, right? Technology is something we'll talk a bit more as we go ahead in logistics, but in general, what we saw was the companies who were more technology savvy, but also the less disrupted, right? They were able to really gauge what is the time taken to recover, what will the time take, how much time will take to rebuild our capacities. They use analytics, they use optimization to rebuild their supply chain, and they were all quite resilient in the way they actually reacted back after the disruptions. So with these, I think what we'll move on is talk about a bit of a supply chain, and then we'll talk about the logistics, and then we'll go into how this course really prepares you going forward. So over to Professor Soman. Yeah.
Okay, Debjit, if I may share the screen.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, now we come to some nut bolts of the course. Of course, supply chain disruption and the ripple effects felt everywhere. That's definitely the talk of the town. We have many ingredients in our course related to those supply risk disasters and how to manage some of those, how to build resilience in our system. Though some of us might feel that this is probably temporal, one-off kind of a thing, and we are still yet to answer some of the questions for the existing challenges. So here are some of the things that we are looking at. Of course, the first one, noticeable, everyone has seen around on our household fronts also, if not much on the business front, the kind of e-commerce growth, the explosive growth that we have seen in India and elsewhere, that's definitely one trend that no one can miss out. No one can miss out. Retailers are talking about omni-channel retailing. Are there any synergies having e-commerce mode or just the physical network that we had for our retail systems and so on? So how do we transform our existing supply chain network, which was probably catering to the traditional channels? What kind of tricks, what kind of changes we need to make for e-commerce growth? And more importantly, can these two, which are seemingly incompatible with each other, how can we find synergies there? That definitely is one of the things which we want to address there. The next one, probably classical one, but even in today's era, it continues. The youngsters in our session today are very keen to embrace any new technology thrown, and of course, why not? We must evaluate each and every technology around, but are we really ready to introduce some of those? Not so sure about that. We need to be aware of things happening in India. I mean, when we look at food grains supply chains, fertilizer supply chains, even cement with a lot of real estate and interesting projects in your towns and cities happening, I would request you to look at the physical movement, transportation there. We are still using those bags, and millions of tons of movement is happening around there. While at the same time, some youngsters every now and then probably see fancy robos in Amazon warehouses. Professor Roy will mention something around that as well. But what we are trying to say, India's specific challenges, we are definitely open for technologies, but there is a large workforce around. There are issues related to employment and other social issues related to that. And what is the right technology? What is the appropriate technology for specific supply chains? Yeah, so that's an ongoing challenge. And even generations after us also will have to take a judicious call there. Interesting things happening on transportation in the transportation sector. A lot of policy changes, e-way bill, of course, the broad ideas. Our popular minister talks about that every now and then. Industry leaders talk about that. India has logistics cost as proportion of GDP pegged at 14%. And whereas the target set by the government, and there is a progress on that front definitely, is how to make it 10%. It's not going to happen overnight, because at least 20 years that I'm following, it is still at 14%. But we see a lot of infrastructure projects around, and those are visible everywhere. We see that because of that, so many things are going to happen. Even in Ahmedabad, I'm hopeful that we will get similar apples very quickly. Of course, transportation, cold storage, there are links associated there. And I hope I'm not just daydreaming when I say that we'll get similar apples for 25 rupees a kg in Ahmedabad instead of 150 that we shell out at the moment. But so many interesting things happening with infrastructure projects. There will be so many changes happening there. A lot of industrial clusters are planned around these freight corridors. Few are already in progress, few more are in the plan. So interesting times ahead for sure. Of course, some traditional topics also, inventory management, with more and more product varieties seen. Product variety seen in so many sectors, not just in food. All of us want variety. Retailers, marketing pros in our organization, they also want to provide variety. But is our backend supply chain geared for that? How do we ensure that our service levels are great? I mean, at the same time, we keep our assets nicely utilized. We try to reduce our inventory cost. How to strike that balance there? Cost and service in general doesn't go hand in hand, but how do we ensure that these go hand in hand? What are the tricks behind those? We are going to definitely see some of those. Of course, with fancy technologies around, IoT devices around, RFIDs there for some time, embedded systems are around, a lot of information, a lot of data at the first level coming from the connected world or Internet of Things, how are we going to make use of that so that we optimize our assets and ensure that we provide a better service level to our customers with the minimum inventory. Professor Debjit talked about mobile getting, the components getting sourced from all over the world. Traditionally, all of us or all the supply chains around were geared only for the forward flow. But what are we doing about the reverse flow? Pepsis of the world definitely were collecting their bottles back. But yes, there are so many interesting stories even from mobile. Without push from any government or any policy or NGO sitting on their back, Nokia, we all know, started worrying about e-waste. Each one of us probably has 4 chargers, old chargers in our room around. Yeah, so more and more companies, of course, stricter environmental laws also coming. There are financial fund houses who are also talking about ESG funds. So this greening of supply chains is not just a lip service that we are talking about. Let me tell you, it already is becoming a boardroom agenda as well. So how can we green our supply chain? People are talking about circular economy. Cradle to grave was a conventional definition of supply chain, but cradle to grave and back. Farm to fork is old and back is extremely crucial. How do we ensure that we green our supply chain, and how do we make our this world a better place for our kids and grandkids? Definitely a lot of things are happening on that front for sure. And finally, while outsourcing was definitely the buzzword for last 2 decades plus, I'm tempted to say that we might hear the term reshoring for next couple of decades. Blame it on nationalistic government or disruptions around, but this, in my view, is going to be one of the key issues that we have to make in India, make America great again. Of course, local flavor. How do we ensure local biodiversity is continuing? And there are so many interesting things around. So promoting local markets and local supply chains, which appears to be a thing of the past, at least in our assessment, I think it's going to be the new thing again. These are just some of the trends which we will definitely try to capture in our module. Just on a simpler note, this is a typical picture of supply chain. Textbookish definition, of course, of various entities which are directly or indirectly related to you serving products and services to the customer. So are transporters part of my supply chain? Definitely. Is government part of my supply chain? Definitely. As someone who has never done MBA, management 101 lesson is management is all about managing material flow, information flow, cash flow. The conventional direction for all these was, is definitely known, and that's what is visible in this picture. But what we are saying is now, yes, feed forward of information. All of us know when courier companies or Amazon, when they are making a shipment to you, their shipment has moved Bhiwandi or has reached Ahmedabad, is about to reach to me in IIM Ahmedabad, right? Not all of us are interested in knowing those details, but that feed forward of information is very crucial. When you go to the airport and realize that, well, your flight is late and you arrived too early. There you expect, had there been this feeding forward of information, you would have implemented the plan B. Isn't that true for supply chain? How many of us on our own, without customers asking us, are going to tell our customer that delivery would be late by 2 days if that's going to be the case? Do we really do that? I'm not so sure about many companies. We probably fear that this is going to be suicidal when I'm not going to make deliveries on time. But that's not the supply chain philosophy. In our assessment, supply chains are built on trust, coordination, integration, and partnership. These are the pillars of supply chain. And the entities that we are seeing, how can they come together and act as a relay team? Because for winning a relay match, 4 Usain Bolts in the team doesn't guarantee a win. How do you pass the baton is extremely crucial in relay teams. as well as supply chain. So we are going to definitely talk about passing the batons, managing the material flow, information flow, and cash flows in various links within supply chain. And in any case, we must by now already start subscribing to the fact that the fight or competition is not between companies, it's supply chain versus supply chain. Professor Debjit now will talk about a few interesting things happening on logistics. Then I will take you through the course content.
Thank you. So I'll just go back to this, please share again. Are you back? See my slides? Okay. So I think Professor Soman already mentioned about the supply chain. And one thing is that if you have to execute the supply chain, logistics is kind of present everywhere, right? Because we have to really ensure we have to store the products and we have to also transport them in a timely fashion. So we need both the storage and the transportation piece. So how this course will focus is that we also have modules that will focus on the storage and transportation piece. And particularly for storage, we'll also help decide what are the optimal locations of your network design, right? So how many storage locations, how many reserve storage, how many forward storages, what is a good location, how do you really decide what are good choices, and so on and so forth. Professor Soman already mentioned about the huge cost that logistics plays in the overall supply chain. But if we talk about this cost, right, what are really why is the cost so high? Now, today you will see that the clearance processes could be very, very delayed because of variety of formalities, paper-driven procedures, lack of transparency of information, or no information at all. So we are trying to also, I think the government, if you recollect, before, when it was Modi like 1.0, when the first time he came, he started off with this ease of doing business. And that is a huge kind of mantra. Every major ports, minor ports were asked to improve their ease of doing business. So if you talk about what really stops our products or what really stops the movement of the flow of goods, so it's primarily do not have track and trace. It's possible that the shipments are quite expensive, infrastructure related problems, efficiency in the problems, and so on and so forth. So that is when benchmarking we do typically. It is the LPI. You can also go and see the Logistics Performance Index. If we compare India with respect to, say, United States or Germany, we are not yet there, right? You can see for most of the dimensions, we are hovering around 3, at best 3.5. If we talk about US, almost 4. If you talk about Germany, about 4.5 in most dimensions. And this is one place where each one of you who are excited in this supply chain field can contribute in one of these dimensions, or maybe more than one dimension, right? So what is required to really take the supply chain efficiencies or improve our logistics performance index to the next level? Globally, I think technology, as you mentioned, is in a big way used, right? We also saw blockchain usage, for example, the trade lens. We have collaborative robots. I'll talk a bit more about it. IoT is big way now, which is helpful for tracking workers, improving their safety in the workforce, also their productivity. Also, the 3PL services are trying to integrate multiple supply chain functions. Professor was talking about reverse logistics, but also packaging, inventory management, and so on and so forth. In some sense, just storage is no longer value add, right? We have to go beyond the storage. So how can we really add more value to our customers is indeed the question here. So there are different trends. If you see other things, there's a lot of work going on in improving the last mile deliveries. India was very big, even still we're quite big with the cash on delivery. Of course, COVID was a savior in some sense for the last mile deliveries because you are always found at home. But before that, even that was a big challenge. I always want to go back to, say, Ramesh's house to find him, but Ramesh, I could never find him at home. And we used to revisit multiple times. So how can I really figure out, I go to Ramesh's house, And exactly I can predict with 90% probability I'll find Ramesh at home, right? So we have to again use data and analytics to make the logistics function even better and more efficient. So there is a lot of interesting things going on in this field. In warehousing, as I mentioned, COVID was kind of a savior because there was a lot of work needed in movement of essential products, and particularly not just restricted to tier 1, but also tier 2, tier 3. There's a huge growth in the better quality assets. So there are now graded assets as grade A, grade B assets. So you will see that, earlier we used to always hear about India more could kind of emerge with the word of godowns, but today we are talking about warehousing. Earlier, warehousing was probably only data warehousing, but today we are also in the physical infrastructure warehousing. So I think this is a big opportunity, but not just warehousing, but rather integrating the transportation and the warehousing with multiple modes is going to be a big opportunity going forward. So the different decision areas in warehousing, of course, where do you store, how much you store, what are schedules, how do you assign, and so on and so forth. Which mode do you choose, what capacity, what frequency, what schedules. In some, always still, I think shippers always focus on total logistic cost. But carriers also have to deliver service, right? Services today, an untold kind of expectations. And to achieve their service with the lowest possible cost is always a challenge, right? So how do you really optimize the cost is often what we need to do. Essentially, I always say that, we always can ask for more and more resources, but are we using the existing resources the best possible way is really where we have to focus on. And what you realize is that even with the last 2 years of fundamental transformation supply chain, digitization supply chain, the fundamentals are still written in stone, right? And that's where we're going to start off with. What are the really fundamentals that drive the supply chain behavior, supply chain strategies, and how can you leverage data and technology to make it even better? So for example, where do you optimize your location of your suppliers? Where should the warehouse be? And there are classical storage locations of where should the stockyards be? Where should the dealers be? How do you optimize them? Where should the primary distribution centers? Where should the regional distribution centers? Of course, previous to the GST, we used to get a lot of benefit by every state having their own assets. But today, with the GST in place, you can also have multiple states sharing resources, right? If that's the case, where do you decide the location choice? Automation is a big deal. Today, of course, during the COVID and the pandemic, the warehouses that were automated were also the ones which were least disrupted, right? There are a lot of interesting robotization going on in the warehousing space, particularly with Gray Orange, Swisslog, Amazon Robotics. They're pushing the boundaries. In some sense, what we say that they're really pushing the efficiency frontier, both in terms of speed, cost, labor productivity, efficiency, safety, and multiple dimensions. So I'll pass on these slides to Professor Soman to talk about how this course can really prepare you to take your supply chain to the next level, or if you are inexperienced in supply chain, how you can use this course to set up your fundamentals. Right, over to you.
I will share.
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about the course there. This is a blended learning course on supply chain and logistics management, storage, transportation, supply chain, the softer part, building on trust, coordination, partnership, and integration between various entities. This course is designed in a modular fashion, and there are 6 modules in it. It's a very comprehensive course on supply chain and logistics management, and rigor is IMA class. In case you are not aware of that, I would request you to reach out to participants of our various programs, long duration as well as short duration programs. These are live sessions These are not recorded sessions. I mean, we have tied up with VCNow. They are organizing this webinar. Our association is there for quite some time. We started offering senior management program, the little longish duration, again in a blended mode way back in 2016-17, one of the most successful general management programs in the country. And this was before every other institute started getting into online. Of course, this helped IIM Ahmedabad having smooth transition into online mode during COVID time. So our association is quite long, and there are many senior folks in the industry who have used facilities at VCNow. They are present in 32 towns and cities, and with lots of facilities at their end. And these are live sessions. These are live sessions with IIM Ahmedabad faculty. IIM Ahmedabad faculty. The course also includes assessment. There are assignments and the appropriate IIM Ahmedabad certification. Yeah, so that's very important to note. There are assignments, there are assessments, there are projects also. And typical of IIM Ahmedabad programs, a lot of rigor is expected. Most of you, I'm sure, would have heard about our famous case-based participant-centered learning approach, very different than the traditional programs in vast majority of the institutes around. There is a lot of preparation that happens before you come to the class. Of course, we will ensure that interesting learnings and takeaways are there from the class. And of course, there are interesting things happening after the class as well. And with a very interesting cohort and participant profile here, I can assure you that there would be amazing off-the-class learning, Definitely lots of things inside the class, but outside the class also very interesting thing happens. But more importantly, preparation is the key. Some of you might be wondering, is this a marketing webinar or what is it? Well, let me be very loud and clear. At our end, there is a simple rule: no preparation, no class. If you are not interested in preparing before coming to the class, this program is not for you. Yeah, so rigor, definitely academic rigor. There is no compromise on that, but that ensures that you have a very, very fruitful course working for you, not just immediately, for quite some time in the career paths that you have chosen. Okay, so the first module is on the supply chain strategy. Looking at some of the strategic decisions, what kind of product markets you want to address, you want to cater to, and what kind of supply chain is appropriate for that. Do you compete on the basis of cost, or is it quality? Is it speed? And it's more about aligning supply chain with the product market characteristics that you have decided to serve. Yeah, so that is definitely interesting things. Of course, most of our programs are cross-functional, though by the name of this program, this one is supply chain and logistics management, but we are very sure that no function can work in isolation. Already in one of the slides, I show you that one of the flows in the supply chains is financial flows, the money that flows between, changes hands between various entities. Supply chain finance is definitely one of the interesting things happening there. There are interesting marketplaces in India where our vendors, our distributors will get finance against their invoices, bills, and whatnot. They need not wait for our payment terms with them. So many interesting things happening there that will also be part of this particular module. Then the physical aspects there, warehousing and the logistics there. Professor Debjit mentioned the typical decisions about the location, the mode choice, the economics of transportation quantity. He already showed you broad numbers from World Bank's report, logistics performance indicators. But how do we do benchmarking for our services against our competitors' services? What kind of distribution strategies we are going to have? So that's definitely one of the modules on the physical aspects there. The third one is looking at procurement, inventory management, and supply risk, the disruption that we talked about, what kind of risk management ideas that we are going to have, how do we identify the risk, how do we assess the risk, and what kind of mitigation plans are we going to have in place so that we remain unscathed with even further disruptions around there. Revenue management is definitely one of the themes which was confined to probably airline industries a few years ago. There are so many companies which are now getting into revenue management and dynamic pricing, and the way you have contracts with your suppliers, with your channel partners, and so on. That's also going to be one of the interesting things. Procurements of components, procurement of services too. Yeah, definitely interesting ideas, interesting case studies from various industries are waiting for you. The fourth module at the face of it can be looked at as more in terms of tools and techniques, the toolbox, the analytics toolbox, if you like that term, optimization models, of course, a simple spreadsheet-based solution wherever appropriate, but for large-scale industrial problems, we may have to get into fancier optimization tools and so on. So we will have sessions, hands-on sessions based on those commercial solvers around as well. So there would be these elements of supply chain modeling and supply chain optimization, and of course then the applications when it comes to supplier selection, or what's the best way to take our products to end user, how do we optimize our last minute deliveries, and so on. So this one is a more quant heavy module. Of course, in God we trust, everyone else must bring the numbers. So all the modules will have some number crunching, but this particular one of definite higher order for sure. So once the toolbox is there, the base optimization toolbox is there, we are also going to look at analytics, the sources of that big data that everyone is talking about. The role of IoT and physical internet, those embedded system, what kind of information is coming from them, and different kind of analytics, whether it's a descriptive, prescriptive, yeah, so different kind of tools around that. Blockchain, Professor Debjit referred to trade lanes, system created by Merck's and IBM, and that is at the interface of, this is the shipping route. The sea route is the most common route when it comes to global trend. So what kind of interesting things are happening there? And are those blockchain applications around in other functions as well? Or it's only confined only to transportation? We'll see that lots of food, pharma that are earlier referred to, lot traceability is definitely one of the interesting and key features there, mandatory requirement also. So lots of interesting opportunities are happening on blockchain and those technologies around. Simulation as a discipline, of course, evergreen, and I must tell you, many will have newfound love in simulation as well. Some of you might have heard the term digital twin. Yeah, because with fancier IoT systems and physical internet around, our machines, our workers, their helmets, the vehicles, we are getting data from variety of sources. Our machines, processes, we are getting data from that. So that data coming to our system, using that, we create a digital twin, a digital footprint of the physical system that we have. But without making changes to those physical things around, we can look ahead. We can do a lot of what if analysis, what kind of decisions would be beneficial for us. So many interesting things are happening from this traditional topic of simulation, but of course in the new avatar, say digital twin mode. So that's definitely around the corner. Omni-channel retailing and e-commerce, I already talked about that. So new things, and again coupled with many new business models revolving around the data that they generate, and based on that recommending products. And again, the recommendation is just one part, but how do we ensure our products subsequently reach to our customers and so on. So that's the supply chain analytics module. And finally, there is going to be a project component, a live project, something which is applied, something which is real life and not just an academic requirement for this duration. So we are very keen to get you involved in some of the projects. I mean, it could be your own, some of the projects could be initiated from our side, but one thing is very simple. We are very close to our logo, Vidya Vinyogat Vikas. We stand by that, and it's all about Vikas through application of knowledge. Yeah, so that's what we firmly believe in. And this module, the last one, essentially builds on the tools, techniques, the strategies, concepts, framework associated to supply chain and logistics management. Then here is our opportunity subsequently to apply that to a real life project. Yeah, so that's broadly the content of this program, which would be in a blended mode. We are starting next month in the physical mode on campus. Then of course there would be interactions which would be happening to through VCNow studios and centers around the country. And of course, we will also have the concluding module on campus. So that's the plan as of now. Now over to you for any questions. And before that, maybe Pulak,
Yes.
Have anything to add here? Yeah.
Yes, it was a very, very insightful session, Professor Soman, Professor Roy, and I think a great great narrative of how we can manage disruptions with this program. And I'm sure, I think people will look at this program as a kind of reskilling themselves and getting on to the next level of things and engaging themselves. So I think, before we definitely are facing few questions in terms of the framework of the program. So I will just share the program framework for the understanding of everyone. And after that, we can get into the Q&A session. Just 1 second. My screen is visible to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So we thought of just encapsulating the program. So the program title is, as professors had already mentioned, Executive Program in Supply Chain and Logistics Management. The duration is going to be 6 to 8 months. The eligibility is you need to have 50% minimum in graduation, along with 2 years of work experience, and you need to have basic programming language skills that would be preferred to join this program. So we'll come to that later. Selection would be through evaluation of online application and SOP. So your applications will be evaluated by the esteemed program directors, and they would either select or reject your application based on the profiling. Delivery mode would be certainly, as mentioned by Professor Soman and Professor Roy, you have to attend your live classes from a nearest VCNow center. So we have designated centers across India, across the length and breadth of India. So if you want, we will share you the details. After the webinar, we'll share you a mailer, wherein you'll have all the details of this program, the locations where it is being delivered. The session timings would be Sundays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. These will be the live sessions wherein you need to attend at your nearest classroom. Campus visit would be, a total of 4 days. So there'll be 2 days at the beginning and 2 days during the end of the program. And of course, subject to government guidelines around the pandemic. So we hope that the pandemic does not really disrupt the entire engagement, but yes, I think most of our engagements are happening in campus now. So we are extremely hopeful that things will be all fine. Our application, would end during August 2, and we have limited seats for this program. Of course, the earlier you apply, it is better because your shortlisting process would also take time. And of course, you have to arrange for your finances. So earlier you apply is better. And the program would commence from August 2022. 17th August is what the program commencement plan is. The application fee, as we have shared, is 2,000 plus GST. That is a non-refundable application fee that you need to pay while you are applying online, along with your documents. The program fee would be 3,25,000 plus GST, so which can be paid in 3 installments. The breakup will be shared over the brochure. Certification would be certificate of participation from IIM Ahmedabad. So this is in a nutshell about the program. We can now carry on with our Q&A, and after that I'll share you the contact details as we conclude. So how do we go about it? I mean, there are few questions which are already posted, which we can possibly take up, 1 or 2 of them, and then possibly we can get into a raise hand option and then carry on with that. What do you say, this professors?
Yes, I think that's great. I see a few kind of questions, and Professor Soman could also please add to that. I think a couple of things that is coming up is in terms of their alumni status. So right now, this is a 64 session course. I hope that this number is right, and that's what we're using. So it's for becoming an alumni, you need to have like a 21-day program. So you can combine this along with other programs, another 5 days to become like an alumni, at least what we have right now, the protocols at IIMA, right? But however, please note that we also have a dedicated center at IIMA, which was founded in 2019, which is called the Center for Transportation and Logistics. And we also have other centers at IIMA, which is on data science and AI and other things, right? So we do a lot of seminars and webinars to also continuously keep you all educated about the latest things happening in this particular vertical. So while this program is going on, of course, you'll be invited, but after when you leave or complete the program, you are in our database and you will be getting all the invitations to join these on an ongoing basis, right? So that is one of the ways that you all can involve yourself beyond what you see in this program. We can take other questions then, and anybody.
Yeah. So there's one question which has come up, is like, what level of, is there any skill sets required in terms of the programming language?
Right. So, okay, the answer is yes and no both. Right. So yes, in some sense, because we'll be using some basic Excel spreadsheet analysis. For one module, which Professor Soman was explaining, which was on the supply chain optimization, there we will use a software on Ample, and maybe in the AI case, we'll be using some R or Python. But for that, the faculty will also prepare you a priori, right? So we have modules on basic R or basic Python, depending on what the faculty uses. So we'll be giving those modules to you much before time so that you're up to speed for those sessions. So I would say you need maybe these things 2 out of the 6 modules, right? And even in those cases, faculty will well prepare you to handle that going forward. What Professor Soman was referring to was that you need to have a knack for that, right? So you should be welcoming and not apprehensive and miss those sessions because this is not your cup of tea. No, we want you to be there in those sessions and participate and enjoy and learn while you're going through those exercises.
In that particular case, I think the appreciation of these tools is something which is definitely in, because unless you are aware of those, no way you are going to deploy and see the benefits associated with it in your situation. Yeah. So it, if one doesn't have those skill set or prior programming, it's not that you will be handicapped there. It's more about the appreciation of these tools and techniques.
Great. I think that answers the question. There's one more question. is there any prior experience in supply chain or logistics required in order to join this program? Is it essential or it can be managed, even for a person who is not in supply chain and logistics or operations?
I'll take that, maybe Chetan, please add to it. I think what we are looking here is 2 years of business experience, right? Because you might be in finance, you might be in accounts, you may be in marketing or sales. So you know that there's something in supply chain that will help you to do your jobs better, and any function interacts with supply chain. So that's why we require a kind of business experience that you can appreciate what we discuss in the class. Short answer, not mandatory, right? It's not mandatory that you need to know supply chain to come to this course. But yes, you need to have a business experience and relevant business experience that helps you appreciate what we discuss in this course. Over to you, Chetan, please.
No, completely agree with you. Yeah. At this time, I mean, we have mentioned only the minimum work X, but for similar programs in the physical format, we have seen actually a diverse profile in terms of number of years and number of industries. And at least we love that, because on large number of occasions, most of us try to find solutions within our company. Next one is within our industry at best, but very rarely we go beyond. So when I talked about cases, I can tell you that we will have cases from various walks of life, and good judicial mix of Indian cases as well as global cases as well.
Yeah. There's also a question that is coming multiple times with respect to the certificate that you get, right? So here we are doing a 64 session program, which is roughly, you can think about 16 days, 16 calendar days. And to get so that program, what we're doing is primarily upskilling, right? So when you talk about assessment, what we really meant is that we might give you a small kind of group work to learn a particular tool, but you won't be graded as such, right? There's no grading here as such. And we think that in these executive programs, we do not want to compete with grades or the thing. Here, what is really meant is collaborative work, get things done, learn, upskill, and move ahead in life, right? But at the end of the course, what we do is a project, and that is something we want to also assess in terms of verbal feedback. Again, no grades per se, just a feedback. And hence, since there is no grading, there's no question of any kind of other than the participation certificate. And that's the common protocol we use across all programs at IIM, not just anything special for this program.
Right. I think, yeah. Sorry, if you want to add anything, Professor Soman?
No, I'm fine. I mean, assessments mainly for your own purposes. Right. Reflection, have we picked the ideas? Are we able to apply, or are we very clear when to apply certain thing, when not to apply? So assessment mainly on that front, and project is where we get an opportunity to apply those things. And again, it should be meaningful, impactful. So assessment and interaction with faculty members is mainly on that front.
Precisely.
That answers the question. One question that has come up is, how would we provide the study materials? Is it going to be a physical form or electronic form? So what amount of electronic and what amount of physical form?
So do we have here, anybody answer? But we can just tell based on experience at IMA, how we do is we have a Moodle page, which is our place to host all the material. So we'll post all the material at least 2 weeks before the session starts, right? So that you're prepared for the particular session that is upcoming. And so that page will be a home page. It'll be kind of your point for all the material and all. In some cases, if faculty suggests that, no, we need to give them a book for a specific topic, that books will be distributed via the VCNow centers. That's how we have been doing in the past. And I think we can continue that work system as well. And when you come to the campus, we'll also give you printouts of the course material for both the first day and towards the last day as well.
Right.
That answers the question.
Yes. There's one question which is there, which is like, how much of the practical aspects will be covered in the analytics area that we would cover there?
Great, great. I think I'll take this again. I think Professor Soman already mentioned this when he was talking. The IMA, the other is, it is all about academics, right? It is IIM academics. In our sense, the academics, the way of learning or the instruction is case-based pedagogy. And what is meant by case-based pedagogy is that pretty much all, except probably one or two modules where we'll talk more about the optimization techniques, even there we will pick up real cases. The cases are typically dilemmas that somebody in the application or some industry has already faced that particular dilemma. And we are trying to solve that particular real problem with the data and the concepts that we are picking up during the sessions, right? So having said that, most of the cases are actual cases. Nothing is very, very limited, I would say, would be based on fiction. These are not fictional cases that we read in novels here. These are real cases, real problems, all application driven. However, there will be concepts that will be driving some of the solutions for those cases. So in that sense, it is all applied. Maybe Chetan, I should add something.
Completely. I think there are some questions also asking about specific algorithms and what is covered under R or Python and so on. I'm afraid while we will be using some of those, well, we don't focus on tools and techniques in details. In analytics also, it's more applied thing. What is the appropriate tool? We will definitely pick some tools, but of course, focus is always on application, the business dilemma situation. And practitioners have told us this repeatedly, that your theories do not work. And well, this is how we operate in most of the sessions. Yeah, there is a situation and we try to uncover or discover theories or concepts through those real life examples. Something similar for analytics also. We won't be teaching tool and technique first and then force feed in some application. And what is the appropriate tool for that? Then definitely we introduce it, we all apply and see the possible benefits. That's the typical instruction method in our sessions.
I also see one more question is coming multiple times, is how would the market accept it, right? So let me ask you this question. How does the market accept any of our executive education programs? So if we talk about any of these programs, and I always say it very bluntly, it will not make you a rocket science leader after the program, no. What it helps you, these kind of programs, is to have meaningful conversations in the boardrooms, right? So once you go to the program, you'll be at least able to understand what company, what you're working on, what problem you're working on, and how can you do your job better. So that's really the goal of these upskilling programs. It is not, next day, we're not saying that after the program, we'll be able to get selected in NASA and they'll take you to take your next spaceship. No. The idea here is very fundamental. It's just to help you to have meaningful conversations, ask the right question, do the right analysis, analyze the right trade-offs, and make you a better kind of supply chain professional, better supply chain thinker, I would say. Okay, there are a few more questions in terms of nature of case studies. All the case studies will be aligned pretty much to the concepts and the topics that Professor Soman already mentioned. So we handpick some of those cases and all, which are really, some of them are bestseller cases, but also we look at the learning objectives and whether it fits very well for the topic that we want to discuss, right? So I think that's pretty much in terms of the cases, and you will see that every case will kind of get to the learning objectives, and hopefully when you write your reflection story, you'll be also able to see how this company applied and why the company did this and not that, and how, if I have to do this, why I will do this and not that, right? And that's important. Yeah.
I think Professor Debjit Roy has very clearly mentioned that why the certificate of participation is being given. So I would request not to repeat that question once again, and please give way for other questions which are relevant, right? So I think he has answered the question twice. Yeah. Anybody would like to, open up the microphone and speak, if you have any queries beyond what we have asked so far.
SOP, is there a SOP or something that they're asking about?
Okay, I'll check that.
Application time, yeah.
Is the application portal has an SOP section?
Yes. So, the statement of purpose, once you apply online, so as you fill in all your personal details, academic and experience details, and you progress with your payment gateway of paying 2,000 plus GST, and then further on, you have to upload all your credentials. And then finally, you have to write a SOP. So it's a statement of purpose wherein you have to, mention in about 300, 400 words as to why this program is interesting you and why do you feel that this program would add value to yourself. The SOP would be one of the key factors of selection. The program directors would go through the SOP, look at your keenness, your interest in the program, fitment into the program, and they finally decide for your selection, right? So that is going to be an integral and mandatory part of application. Any further questions?
I think Gurappu has a question.
Okay.
You want to unmute and speak, Gurappu? No. Amit, you want to unmute and speak?
Okay, I think Amit has raised his hand, so Amit can speak.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, this is Madhukar.
Yes, Madhukar. Go ahead.
Sir, I'm working as a purchase executive in a pharma chemical company in SCM industry. Why don't we don't have many more opportunities in industry in supply chain? As a fresher, many companies recruit only for these professionals only, exactly professional, 4 to 5 years around. So some of them are interested in, right? They need to do the MBA in finance, MBA in marketing, sales, some other finance operations. So they also have some interested in supply chain to join as a fresher. But most of the companies are not offering these jobs in freshers based. They're recruiting only for the higher professional skills for this particular role. Can you please guide me this more opportunities for fresher as a 1-2 hour experience in supply chain industry to develop their skills, reskill and upskill in supply chain to learn about the more technologies without having any specialization in compared to other industry?
It depends. I can take this quickly. It really depends on what you're looking for. Huh? For example, I know freshers, they pick up for very specific function in like custom jobs, custom executives. If you're going to a logistics or you're taking care of transportation, there'll be transport planner jobs. And in fact, in Netherlands, it's actually, or in the US, there's a huge opportunity of logistics professionals, and especially with the booming of the e-commerce and all, I think the requirement for skilled supply chain professionals will be even more. I think I don't say there is no opportunity. Rather, today I would say with all this quick commerce and everything coming up, there'll be tremendous opportunity in this field. But what they don't have usually, freshers, is that they don't have the right skills. And hopefully, these kind of programs will help you to gain those skills before you are suitable for any of those kind of a job.
Even though we have some relevant skills for the supply chain, they are
companies
hiring for specific requirements for like that 5 to 6 years, 4 to 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends.
Even we have even we have skills like around experience like 4 to 5 in the 1-2 years only.
Yeah, it depends. I think we do not have a debate over here whether jobs or not. I think we have to really find out the right opportunity and have the right matching.
Just asking for this to clarify the bit out.
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on to Amit. Amit, you want to ask a question? Amit Jain. Okay, we'll move to Deepika. Deepika, you would like to ask the question? Shrikant?
Mute Shrikant and then ask.
Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Hi, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So hi, Amit Jain here. So first of all, I would like to thank all of you to host a webinar on this to provide more clarity on what should be expected out of the program and and what is expected from the candidate as well. So my question is on the application part. So there's like we have to mention the job responsibility, but the section is very limited. I mean, there's a word limit, so we are not able to fill it with all the details that we do. So how to go about that? Should we mention only the major KPIs that
your phone needs a mobile or Wi-Fi connection?
Yes. So you can mention the major, and what Amit we will do, we will get you a call back from our backend team.
Okay.
And they will also help you out into your, whatever difficulties you might be facing. So you can expect a call, after this webinar, and they will guide you through, right?
Okay, fine, sure. Thank you.
Do you have any other question, Amit?
No, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Deepika, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Yes, Deepika, you're audible.
Okay, so it was a great overview session. Actually, I'm a data scientist, so that's the reason I was asking questions related to analytics. And I like to understand here because I'm into supply chain domain. So algorithms are really important for me, that what kind of on the application side. So irrespective of what tools you'll be using, Excel, R or Python, I'm more interested in what kind of optimization algorithms or say spend analytics, or logistic network optimizations and all. At least if you can name few, and is this course worth for me to join with respect to analytics side, apart from also gaining domain kind of knowledge. So if the professor could answer few of the questions, that will be very helpful for me.
Sure. Should I take that?
Okay, I mentioned very broadly probably for the so he wants more detail.
Okay. So I'll just take it up. So we had in our past programs, for example, in warehousing program, I remember having folks from data sciences teams and all. So typically what data scientists lack, from what I understand by interacting with them, is first of all, as you mentioned, domain knowledge, right? So are they solving the right problem? Are they collecting the right data? Are they using the right kind of process maps? So there's one very fundamental is, do you know the supply chain processes and are you solving the right problem? Okay, that's one part of it. So once you know that, yes, I got the big picture, I pretty much know these are the different data sources, these are the decision variables, this is what I want to either predict or I want to optimize, or the optimize the spend, for example, in procurement. Let me give you an example. Suppose you want to optimize the procurement cost, right? And you figure out that, hey, I noticed that these supplier from this particular region always has large defects. Okay, you have some priors now of some based on some data. Now, once you get those priors, can we use that and use some kind of Bayesian framework or something to optimize your beliefs, and further, how do you optimize or select your right supplier, for example? Right? So that the data piece comes together. Likewise, when we talk about optimization and you want to decide the different locations for, suppose, your regional DCs and all. And this is a classical facility location problem. Maybe you'll be learning with some mixed integer formulations. You'll be programming this in probably AMPL, and probably you'll be also understanding some of the trade-offs and getting some feasible solutions. How do you run heuristics? So some of those will be going over there. Again, a word of caution here, right? We're talking about 6 modules, 64 sessions. So we'll be not talking about data for all the 64 sessions. It's possible that each module will run for like 10 sessions. And probably in a course of 64 sessions, optimistically, probably I would think about 16 sessions would be really about data and algorithms. It could be more or less, it's just my first guess. So there'll be a lot of focus on understanding business processes, also understanding in a basic mathematical model analysis. You do not need data, but some kind of analytical model will go in the back end, right? So again, domain knowledge, processing, process map, understanding decision variables. Are you selecting the right data? Are you able to doing the right analysis? Are you answering the right question? And then comes the method, and hopefully will give you a suite of tools as well to explore going forward. Again, this is not the end of your supply chain life. Yeah, this is just beginning, and hopefully this will take you in the right direction.
Thank you, Professor Roy. I think we are already over time, so we'll take quickly 2 questions, the final ones. So I think Shrikant, you would like to ask a question?
Hello. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead.
Good evening, Professor. So I am an inventory management guy within the plant, right? Not in supply part. So I am having 10+ years of experience. Will it help me to move on to the supply part of the supply chain management? Will this course by attending this course?
Chetan, you take it, please.
Okay. I mean, yeah, at the moment you are managing inventories within the plant, but yes, inventory management is important in all the stages in supply chain. How are you going to serve the customer? It starts with that basic question also. What's the main stocking point for you? Do we carry closer to the customer, or do we carry a little away from the customer? So what are the product market characteristics? What are the process characteristics? Yeah, and again, inventory positioning, strategic inventory positioning is definitely one of the key elements there. While some of the questions which you are answering now within a plant, how much, when, those are relevant for other stages also. When you look at it strategically, and when you are looking at multiple stages at the same time, you will also be looking at the other question, what is the main stocking point and how much we carry, when do we get the material there. So inventory management, I mean, because material flow is throughout the supply chain, that's very much relevant across, There is also financial flow connected there, money tied up there. What are your payment terms? So as I was hinting earlier, supply chain finance is definitely becoming a new idea. Almost every major bank in the country has this supply chain finance kind of services now. So many interesting things happening around that also, whether it's procurement side, whether it's distribution or within plant. Yes, inventory management is definitely there, but as we were hinting, course has many more elements apart from inventory management as well.
Okay, thank you, Professor Soman. Harsharan will go next.
Yeah, hi, professors. Thank you for the wonderful session. My only question is that I've been into supply chain for say about, I think, maybe 24 years. So you have mentioned about the minimum qualification and what is required, but is there any maximum qualification or the time period, I mean, when a person can join this course? So would you please recommend, what would you like to say?
No, I think just taking it up, Harsharan. So I think if you have a lot of experience, we may also ask you to share your experience with others.
Sure,
right?
So that would be there.
So
yes,
we do sessions actually also on what we call best practice sharing, and always in my course and even from Soman's course, we usually ask some of the experienced people to talk about the challenges they face, how they have been dealing with it, and you know that's really the value of the cohort, right? Because while we'll talk about models, while we'll talk about practical applications, but you can also say that, you know what, we faced similar situation with the additional constraint, and that's beautiful. So I think your people, experienced people, a lot of experience, add a lot of value to the class as well. So no bar on that, no. Hope that answers.
Yes. We will now go to Rajesh. So we'll give time for only 1 or 2 questions more. We are already over time. The rest of the questions you can post on chat, and our team will get back to you, after the webinar or latest by tomorrow. Yeah, Rajesh.
Yeah, hello. Hello. Good afternoon. Sorry, good evening, everyone. And thanks for sharing the wonderful and arranging wonderful session for us. So basically, I'm having a more than 20 plus experience. By heart, I'm mechanical engineer and 14 plus experience in logistic and materials management. So being a consultant for inventory and procurement, I just would like to know about what are the key softwares or tool techniques you are going to provide or inbuilt in or incorporate in this course, which value added for the as a IIM brand or as well as the participants for the knowledge updation, because what happened now, it's a technology driven company nowadays. So every companies wants digitize their processes and everything. So everyone requires some technology perspective, how you are gonna incorporate in particular kind of tools and techniques or some softwares like SAP or some other softwares like third-party software.
I think we have got your question, Rajesh. I think this question has already been answered by our esteemed, program directors. So,
Just a short answer, maybe.
Yeah.
I just give a short answer is that if you're looking to learn new softwares from a commercial standpoint, this is not the right course. In fact, we will not get into any of the probably SAP system and all. However, we spend a lot of time on understanding technology. How do you select the right technology? How do you discuss or how do you optimize the right variables in the technology selection process? So we'll talk about the management part of it, but not give you any hands-on training on learning SAP system or learning a new WMS system. This is not the course for that, right? This is, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is primarily to sharpen your supply chain thinking skills and how do you have meaningful conversations around optimizing supply chain, working with suppliers, working with vendors, making the right trade-offs in these optimization problems and move forward.
We will move to Sumer as the final question. This will be the final one. Sumer.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Sumer. Go ahead.
Hi, sir. Good evening. Thanks for this wonderful session. Sir, I have a query that I am actually working as a relationship manager in sales in automobile industry.
Yeah.
So, is this good?
What is the question?
Planning to move on in logistic management and all. So, is this suitable for me? Need a suggestion.
Okay, you are in automobile. You want to switch over to supply chain, segment, right? So whether it will be appropriate for him.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I think you will definitely appreciate. I mean, in most of the organizations, sales and operations or sales and logistics don't see eye to eye. So in that sense, I definitely see a positive in your question that you want to look at some other roles also. Of course, for sales to happen, we need to have inventory positioning. We need to have connections with what kind of activities are happening in plant, what's available to promise and whatnot. Also, when it comes to our service network, the spare inventories, again, and how do you service our customers very quickly. So in that front end role, obviously, in your role, the lines between operations and sales functions were quite blurred. And I definitely see that as a positive, because the course is definitely, yes, focus is on typical issues, decisions in supply chain and logistics function. But as we repeatedly say in most of our courses at IIM Ahmedabad, no function can work in isolation. What I do in operations and supply chain function and logistics function has definitely a bearing on sales function. What they do and attempt in sales definitely has bearing and implications for us. So yes, if you are looking at the appreciation of other function and possible switch subsequently, I think there would be lots of elements there. Because the first module that I referred to, strategy, I mean, strategic decisions in supply chain. Again, it can't work in isolation. I mean, I need to, like I was mentioning there, what are the product market characteristics, and is my supply chain aligned with that? So in that sense, I think a broadening of horizon will definitely happen for you since you are in sales function. Definitely, sales logistics interface extremely important, and you will appreciate it in much better way.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much.
So I think Professor Roy, Professor Soman, we can conclude the session today. And we are extremely grateful to you for having rendered your valuable time despite your very, very busy schedule. I think today also you were pretty, held up with things. Thank you for giving the extra time responding to the, inquiries patiently. So thank you so much. And I will share a slide which contains the contact details of ours. So after this, everyone is concluded, we will share the details on mail to you. The entire brochure, details, link, everything will be shared on mail. So not to worry. But yet I will also share the contact details here for the benefit of everyone. Just 1 second. So this is our contact details. There's a central number. You can reach us on this number, or you can mail us in any of these 2 email IDs, right? So thank you so much for participating into this webinar. For all of you who have joined us, you have spared your time this evening. So have a great weekend to all of you.
Yeah.
And thank you, professors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you on our campus soon.
Yes, looking forward.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Jyotirmai, we can conclude.
Thanks, Gula.